Okay? So please follow along. Regressions where points are missing. For a quadratic, okay, this is very much quadratic specific, okay? The quadratic is the one where you can infer and come up with points that are apparently missing at first. The one extra point you need to come up with 3 points. You need a minimum of 3 for a quadratic. The first type that I find is I call it the profit or revenue type of questions. Okay? And in general, you want to make a table with 3 entries. I'm telling you that the province often has a table that you just need to fill in. But it consists of the cost or price per item, the number of items you're going to sell, and the profit column at the end, which is cost multiplied by the number of items. And just briefly, for some of you that haven't been exposed to this before, if you sell something, let's say you make an Apple device, like your Apple right now, you made a new phone, and you're selling it, right? You're interested in profiting, right? That's basically your main concern. If you don't charge anything for the phone, how much are you going to profit? Nothing, right? But as soon as you start increasing the price of the phone, you make more money, But there's a point. This goes back to business. If you've taken business, I'm sure you've seen some of this. You get to a point where you make the most money as a company, but as soon as you start overcharging, you're going to sell fewer and fewer phones, so you actually start dropping, and eventually you break even. Like there's a point where you don't make money, you don't lose money, but you break even, okay? So these types of questions are often concerned with the vertex. At the vertex, you find the maximum profit that you could possibly make within the problem, within the scenario, okay? So, one thing that I will tell you is that, listen carefully to this part, there are 3 columns, right? This one always goes into L2. Always L2, this profit. But whether you put the cost into L1 or the items into L1, make sure you follow along, guys, that will depend on the question. If the question asks the cost and the profit, right, then you will put the cost of the item into L1 and the profit into L2. If it wants you to compare the items and the profit, like how many items you've sold, and the profit, obviously you would go put the number of items into L1, and you put the profit into L2. And another thing I want you to know is that make sure that your resulting equation does not have A equals to 0. Because if A is equal to 0, you've made a mistake. That would be a linear situation. And then I talk about zoom stat as before, okay? That's it. This is my intro, page 45. That's my intro to this type of regression. I will now go straight to the example on 46. Okay. So here's the scenario. Disclaimer, my questions, they go way further than what I think you're gonna experience in this type of scenario. Most of the time you'll be asked to fill in a table, come up with your equation, and then maybe ask for the maximum profit. That's it. They're not gonna ask you to graph, so I'm gonna skip that part, even though the questions do ask for it. I'm going to skip that part in our lesson, okay? So a movie theater charges $1.80 per ticket. At this price, they sell approximately 400 tickets per day. So this is a given. This is basically a point that you know. The theater manager observed that, watch this, for every 10-cent increase in ticket price, what happens to the tickets sold? There are 40 fewer tickets sold. So as your price goes up, you just have to read very carefully. Sometimes the price goes down. So, but in this case, we know that the price increases, the number of tickets sold decreases. So you know this is the profit type of scenario. You know that profit is going to be on this right-hand side, and you're going to do the cost, right, times the items that you sell. You decide which column you want to assign to which. If you want to start with the ticket price, no problem. Have that as your first column. And this would be the number of tickets. So this is your number of items. This is the cost per item. Okay? And then the profit will simply have to multiply these two. So when the ticket is $1.80, we sell 400. So how much are you going to profit in this scenario? Well, you're going to go 180 times 400. We'll calculate that later. And now it's where the change happens. This is going to result in 1 point. You need 2 more in order to have 3 points in total. So when the price goes up by 10 cents, right, to go from here to here, you went plus 0.10, right, to get to here. What happens to the number of tickets? They drop by 40. So you're at 360 here. So under this scenario, it's $1.90 times 360. Guess what? You do this for one more iteration. So another 10-cent increase from that gets you to a $2 ticket price. And because you increase the price, you're going to lose another 40 tickets. Right? So now you are at $2 times 320. Boom. I'm just going to prepare you for something that just came to mind. I can see them saying this. For every 10-cent increase, you lose 10% of your sales. Like 10% of ticket sales decrease. What's 10% of 400? In this case, it's 40, right? So you'd have to go minus 40. What is 10% of 360? 36, right? So you'd have to drop that by 36. So read carefully. My experience is that they give you both and it's a fixed amount. You don't have to worry about that, but you never know. So let's fill in this table. So you go $1.80 times 400, $1.90 times 360, and 2 times 320. That's 640. I told you to create a table. They may or may not ask you to do it, but you should know, wait a minute, if I want a quadratic, I need to have my points. What does it say next? Determine the equation relating the ticket price and the profit. So you know, oh, ticket price, so price per ticket, this column here is going to go into L1. And the profit, no surprises, always goes into L2. In a sense, they tell you what your X variable is and what your Y variable is. So we go over here, we let this be L1, we let this last column be L2. Then we're going to go stat, calculate quadratic regression. Let's come up with our equation. Okay. So stat, edit, clear whatever you have in there. $1.80, $1.90, 2, 720, 684, 640. I'm going to go, do I need to do the zoom stat? I don't need to do the zoom stat just yet. I can just go to stat, calculate, and perform a quadratic regression. Right. So this is negative 400 x squared plus 1120x. Do you need the plus 0? It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't really need to be included. Boom, you've got your quadratic equation. So basically what happens, if you look at this graph that I included, you have your profit here in dollars, and you have the price per ticket also in dollars along the x-axis, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. What is it asking here? What ticket price would result in the maximum profit? What is the maximum profit? Do you see maximum everywhere? The greatest? What are you thinking of? Second, trace, max, right? Vertex. By the way, if your parabola is pointing up, you're in trouble, right? Like you're saying that profits go up indefinitely. There is a limit to how much you can charge, right? Your challenge right now is to find the window. That's the biggest problem you're going to have. I'm going to go zoom stat, and it's not going to be a very good window. I'm telling you that already. Is that a parabola? It should be a parabola, but does this look like a parabola right now? You don't see the whole thing? So what is the first thing that I will advise you to do? Window, X min. Look at your X max right now. It's 2, right? I'm going to go to my X min. I'm going to change that to -1. And I'm going to go to my Y min. The high right now that I'm seeing is 73.3. So the min, I'm going to go -5. Make sure your X min and Y min is negative. That's what I'm trying to say here. Hit graph. Now you see a little bit more. I got to increase my X max. I got to increase my Y max. So I'm going to do that right away. X max, I'm going to go, what would you suggest, 8? I'm going to try 8. And my Y max, I'm going to try 800. Hit graph. That's a pretty good graph. I don't know why the red line is there. Ignore it. There we go. That is what I'm supposed to see. Now I can find the maximum. Second trace max. My cursor wasn't showing up, so you go enter, 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 1.4, 784. What do these numbers represent? The first number represents the ticket price, and the second number represents the profit. Okay, so let's answer accordingly. A ticket price of $1.40. Okay, maximum profit would be $784. Put on 2 zeros, it doesn't hurt. How many tickets are expected to be sold at this price? Number of tickets. Number of tickets are not in our quadratic. It's price and profit. So I'll tell you this. If you want to know the number of items that are sold, we're simply going to take our profit and divide it by the cost per item. This is in general a formula that will work for you every single time. So tickets would be 784. That's my profit at that high point. And I'll divide it by 1.4. That's 560 tickets. If it's not a round number, make sure you round it at this point. So I will conclude with E, and then you can practice this. What ticket price or prices would give a profit of 450? Profit is 450. You can make a profit of 450 charging a price that you're going to find here, or you can charge more, and in both instances make 450. Yes? Round down or up. Yeah, but that whole number is what needs to happen there. Yeah. So I find both of these prices. So I'm actually just going to give you a diagram here. This is my 450 line. So there's a price you can charge here and a price here. The first one is, I'm just going to quickly find it here. This one is 231, and this one here is 49 cents. So 49 cents or $2.31. You decide what you want to charge. Okay. I'm going to ask you to try. Let me see here. What happened? I think I'm only going to give you the take-home quiz. That's where this shows up. No, 62. Page 62 has it. So go to 46. And I'm just going to ask you to try page 62. I will go there and give you the answer to it so that you at least know how to come up with the equation. Because I would expect you to know how to use the equation once you have it, right? 62, if you want to write down the quadratic equation real quick, that is on page 62, that is your answer. This deals with canoe rentals. So write down that page there.